You blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink.
I got you.
Let's go.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition here of the Menace Steel Podcast. With, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Ritchie right now. We are getting ready in over a month and a half. The NFL Draft Week coming up. Or actually less than 2 months, I should say, excuse me. NFL Combine has come to a wrap right now, and the Steelers right now are getting closer to fulfilling their offseason needs right now. Of course, everyone is familiar with right now. I've been hearing a lot of speculation, including which has been growing rapid fire as of late. The reports from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, that Aaron Rodgers right now possibly lists some teams outside of Green Bay about possibly ending up somewhere else aside from Green Bay Packers. He lists three AFC teams over this past weekend, which included the Denver Broncos, the Tennessee Titans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. How much does he end up staying in Green Bay right now? It is going to be a real interesting decision here. See how this all goes down. He's still not made up his mind tomorrow right now. Made up his mind what his future is going to be. But the Packers are at the moment right now planning on offering him a contract that'll reset the market coming in right now as we look at it. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers right now and his current cap number for the Green Bay Packers is at $46.6 million. It'll be the cap hit. Obviously, if he ends up staying or going somewhere else, the team who gets him and whatever compensation they send to the Green Bay Packers, which is reported to be multiple first-round picks, I believe, for this year and the next year. And I want to see a third rounder for what it sounds like. But either way, whoever gets him, more than likely the team that lands this guy is going to probably have to extend his contract. How much is that a real thing right now when we look at it? Only time will tell. We'll find out. But for right now, once again, I am Charles Prodigy Ritchie right now. You guys can follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at MenaceSteelCGR and on Instagram at MenaceSteelNation as we continue to break this thing down, see what kind of legs this thing continues to have right now. Because I'll tell you right now, when you look at Aaron Rodgers and his storybook career right now, for the NFL, what he's been able to do, he's been with the Packers since 2005, first-round pick selected out of for his college, was based out of California. But anyway, for the most part, when you look at what he was able to do right now, and since being a star back in 2008, he came out of California of the Pac-10, played 2 seasons there, and you look at what he's been able to do. This guy who was one game above 500, 11-10 in the playoffs, but definitely struggled some in the conference championship games. Overall with his tenure as Green Bay Packer. A lot of people would argue for the guy that even when he didn't have enough talent around him, he would turn in a lot of great winnable products for the Green Bay Packers. When you look at his overall run in Green Bay, for that. And for the most part, 1-4 in conference championship games. Listen, he is a 4-time MVP, second most behind Peyton Manning all time. But I'd really be interested to see what kind of legs this continues to grow, because for right now, it is definitely getting very interesting at this moment, because I'm not so sure. When you hear reports, you hear Adam Schefter, basically of ESPN, stating and Jeremy Fowler that terms of potential new contract could always change, but a 3 or 4 year deal would help Green Bay's salary cap situation, given that Rodgers, who is 38 years old, which will carry him well into his 40s right now. Green Bay Packers right now, they're $27 million over the cap. which is about 9 days before the start of the new league year. The Packers were expected to offer Rodgers a new deal at some point this offseason with dual intention of getting under the salary cap, but also provide market level compensation for the back-to-back rating league MVP. Now, listen, I mean, I will say this. Aaron Rodgers, among many, and a lot of people in Steel Nation, I gotta believe, are split. I mean, how much would you want this guy on this team? I mean, me personally, no. But I mean, if you had to, swallow up your pride and look at who he is as a quarterback, and if you want to keep this team being in it to win it for a long time, I don't think you want to necessarily shut it down at the end of the day. You don't want to be foolish enough, pass up on an opportunity to have a guy like this on our center. I still don't think this makes a lot of sense for this team to get any leeway. But only time will tell. Who knows? I think for him to even, as of right now, for that to even get out there, to list the Steelers as one of his three teams. And keep in mind, the teams they listed outside of Green Bay, they're all AFC teams. Now, you have right now on 93.7 The Fan, Horst, who's one of the board ops for that show, he basically believes that if it's not the Green Bay Packers, it's the Denver Broncos pretty much. But I mean, you look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I mean, the last 2 years now, I mean, he seems to be gaining a lot of headlines in the offseason. A lot of stuff, I mean, focused around him. I mean, like many people would argue he enjoys the attention of being covered. I mean, last year, I mean, it was a very rocky relationship with the Packers. I mean, he was definitely a very frustrated man, as you could imagine. I mean, after coming up short to going to the Super Bowl, they're one game away. Then you fast forward a year later, as he wins his second MVP award. Now all of a sudden, just how you continue to maintain that success, keep him as a top seed with a bye, and then to get bounced by the 49ers in your first game. He seems to be like more at peace with everybody with Gutekunst, and of course Matt LaFleur right now as it stands. And I really feel like right now when you look at it, it is definitely going to be some interesting stuff going on over here. I mean, the Packers, right now with Gutekunst and Mark Murphy right now, I mean, it is definitely, it's just no clear answer. Where is this guy going to go? Be truthfully honest with you, I don't really see it being too much of a real thing. I mean, for them to even say that the Steelers, along with the Titans and the Broncos, have a trade deal in mind. And I don't get it, because you know what? Here's the thing. It's one thing when they trade, for a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, when they acquired him back in 2019, Steelers who at that time right now, traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers along with 2024 fourth round and 2021 seventh round pick for the Steelers, set a first and a fifth round pick in 2020 and 2021. You got to understand something. With Minkah Fitzpatrick, when he came over here, he was a lot younger. He was barely in his second year. At that time right there, too, he was only, when you look at it, for the most part, he was only 22 years old. That made a hell of a lot more sense. He was going to be turning 23 that season. I do feel like age makes a hell of a lot of a difference here. Aaron Rodgers, even if you do bring this guy aboard, I'm not sure if he's that good enough where you're going to think instant Super Bowl contender with this team. There's still a lot of inconsistencies with the offensive line. We saw the sacks go up tremendously. I mean, last year by the Steelers. I mean, it was not a fun year to see your quarterbacks get knocked around. I mean, team allowed 38 sacks. I mean, and from the previous year, had 14. So 24 more sacks in 2021, yet alone with bad run blocking. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is able to be a Steeler uniform, which I highly doubt, I really don't believe they're going to send multiple first-round picks. I mean, to get him. I mean, yeah, you have a guy like Najee Harris. I mean, you still have a guy right now with Juju Smith Schuster right now, who is still a question mark as far as future with this team. Basically, I mean, you got some other needs on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, who currently right now, I mean, got some restructures you can imagine they're going to do. They sit currently at $28.8 million. And cap space, they are definitely vested in money right now going into this. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, the list of their free agents, I mean, right now who are unrestricted, the huge names are going to be. Right now, you got Joe Hayden, your quarterback right now. Not too much of a promise that he is going to be back, I mean, this year. I mean, for this team right now. I mean, Joe Hayden right now, I mean, for the most part, I mean, when you look at everything right now, I mean, Joe Hayden, who's going to be about 33 years old this coming season, I mean, he's kind of lingering right now if he's going to be brought back or not. I mean, you also look at Juju Smith-Schuster, who's an unrestricted free agent, came back a nice cheap deal last year, where he had base salary of $1 million and a sign bonus of 1.4, where he was his cap number was $2.4 million right there. That's one piece you're gonna have to consider right there. I mean, one of Ben's favorite players right there. And when you look at the free agents too, I mean, with the Steelers coming up right now, I mean, you also got Eric Ebron. I think he is definitely going to be gone from this list right now. I mean, Trey Turner right now, who I thought played well last year. I don't know if he's coming up. He is unrestricted. I mean, you got some decisions right here to make right now. I mean, you got to believe, too, in this draft, they're going to have to address their tackle position right now. And this year's draft has got a decent amount of tackles in here, as highlighted by Kevin Colbert. So even if you do like surrender like a multiple first round picks, I mean, you ain't gonna get good tackles till probably like maybe, I don't know, like second or third round. If they do, the tackles in this year's draft, you got 6 projected to be in the first round, 10 at least in the top 100 picks. You gotta get this thing going on the right tracks right now. And the way I see things right now, it does not make a lot of sense, but at the same time, there's gotta be something to it right now. For this be floating around out there that him and the Steelers could actually be a match. I don't know. What I will say for right now, I mean, when it comes into this season, I just don't feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to be the end-all, solve-all problems. I mean, you also look at the defense, too. We'll go back to, I mean, Stephon Tuitt. Now, granted, I mean, Colbert has acknowledged that they have had communication. They're open to having them back. But that's still not a promise if he is coming back to this team right now. They could smooth things out right now. I mean, for this year. But, I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be some decisions they got to make right now. I mean, James Washington, you got to imagine he'll probably be going somewhere else. He is an unrestricted free agent. And as far as, like, their restricted free agents, I mean, for right now, you got at least three of them right now in Dwayne Haskins, Robert Spillane, Mark Allen. Dwayne Haskins, Kevin Colbert has already acknowledged they plan to re-sign him once that period comes. And then you also got that's a linebacker, Robert Spillane. He seems to be a guy who might be learning. I mean, didn't really do much for the run stopping on this defense, which this team really got gored big time. And of course, linebacker Marcus Allen. So what do you guys think right now? I mean, how much is Aaron Rodgers, worth to you? And I'll reiterate what Joe Starkey said on the Cook and Joe show earlier this morning. How much do you believe Aaron Rodgers would help take this team to the next level as far as keeping them relevant, but a championship team? And what would be the price you'd be willing to give up for him? Is it worth giving up multiple first-round picks for a guy in Aaron Rodgers? With this Packers team, who, by the way, he is currently 38 years old. He'll be turning 39 this December 2nd. So he'll be 40 the following season, 2023. Let me know, again, if you guys want to share your comments. I'm streaming live right now on Instagram at Man of Steel Nation. And, of course, on my Facebook page, which is Man of Steel Podcast. Check in right now. So we're going to be covering some ground right now. Yay or nay on Aaron Rodgers. More than likely, we're going to be hearing a decision tomorrow from what it sounds like. He's going to be letting the Packers know with his staff, but only time will tell. Anyway, just to recap some stuff that was covered, this happened in the past week too. Steelers right now, once again, they will not be playing overseas right now, coming into this season. Their last overseas game happened to be back in 2013, and where they play the Minnesota Vikings right now. They have the second longest drought behind the Denver Broncos, which has been 12 years since they last played. Steelers, it'll be 9 seasons, so that's the second most. And as far as playing in Mexico, will not happen. This year, that will be the Arizona Cardinals on a determined date, which will be in Azteca Stadium. So for right now, Steelers not going to be playing international, but we do have plenty of overseas games coming up right now for the 2022 calendar, basically, which will be 5 games, 3 in London, 1 for the first time in Germany, which will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and of course Arizona Cardinals playing Mexico. The other teams playing in London will be the Packers, Saints, and Jaguars. Packers, this will be the first time they'll be playing international in their franchise history. So coming up on that as we look at it for right now. Let's get into it right now. Quarterback for this year's draft right now. Let's take a look at it right now. It was last week pouring the Tony Pauline Pro Football Network, which Pro Football Network, they can be followed on Twitter at PFN365. Steelers are targeting 3 signal callers: Mitch Trubisky, Ty Bridgewater, and Jameis Winston. Now, there seems to be a lot of traction right now coming up with Mitch Trubisky right now. For whatever reason. You got a lot of people in the Pittsburgh media, especially 937 The Fan, who really feels like this is going to be Mitch Trubisky, a rolling train here. It's for whatever reason. You got a lot of people coming in right now. A rolling train here. For whatever reason. 937 The Fan, we got my very favorite guy, Brian Yarlow. Brian, how are we doing today, sir?
I wasn't sure if you were taking callers this evening.
No, actually, welcome to have you on right now. Just want to hear your thoughts right now. Here are reports right now is by Pro Football Talk. I'm sure you heard about right now Mike Florio, who seems to be standing firm that there's got to be some legitimacy behind Aaron Rodgers wanting to be out of Green Bay, and surprisingly still, too, that he's still listing the Steelers as his number 3 team behind the Titans and the Broncos. I mean, I'm not so sure if that's going to be a realistic scenario. But what was your thoughts right now? I mean, either that or even trying to bring in a guy like Mitch Trubisky right now, former Bear quarterback last year in the Buffalo Bills. I want to get your thoughts so far of what has been trending out there.
I think that there is the thought that he is using this as a smokescreen. That being Aaron Rodgers, he's using these teams as a smokescreen, trying to squeeze more money out of Green Bay before he would make his final decision. That seems like that's the overwhelming thought in Pittsburgh. So this is a smokescreen. This isn't really legitimate. My thought is, I think there is legitimacy to it. I think that he actually is considering these other teams, and he legitimately doesn't know what he wants to do. Like, I could be being played as a fool for thinking that, but I also like out. And so I do think that there is validity there. I think that report is legitimate, and I do think that he might be actually interested in coming. That being said, it's interesting because it does not seem like a lot of Steelers fans want that to happen. It seems like, yeah, they might say that now, then they'll be happy when they get him. It might be Steelers fans not wanting to get their hopes up, but a part of me thinks that I think no matter what, Charles, I think the Steelers are in a good situation. I think if they're able to get Rodgers, they'll have to give up probably 2 first-round picks. I think there are. And I actually wrote an article where I looked at what the roster might look like with Rodgers on the team. It's not like they would have to give up that much to get him. Yes, 2 first-round picks is pretty significant if that's what it would cost. We don't really know. We know that's what it cost to get Stafford to the Rams, along with other things. But Stafford's younger, and the Rams were more desperate. Steelers aren't necessarily, I don't think, desperate. I wouldn't consider them desperate. I think they like Mason Rudolph. So I think if they can get Rodgers, I think that they will be out probably to number 1 first-round draft picks. But I think most people would make that trade. Even when the Steelers brought Minka in, they lost 1 first-round pick. And I think most people have been largely okay with how that's turned out. And he's going to want to command some money. Any veteran quarterback's going to command quite a bit of money. So that's not anything like, the Bengals are going to realize that soon when Joe Burrow contract's up. I mean, the going rate now for quarterbacks is $40 million. I mean, what the Steelers got Ben for last year was historically cheap given his credentials. So, but if that doesn't work out, then it's going to be a Mitch Trubisky, or it's going to be a Teddy Bridgewater potentially, or Marcus Mariota, somebody like that, and one of those quarterbacks will compete with Mason and Haskins to get the job. If it comes down to that, I would think that Mason would win the job. And I think, no matter what, I mean, the Steelers have it's probably the most cap space they've ever had. I mean, now with the new salary cap coming out, I think it's going to be $208 million, I think, 203, 208, but they're going to have, I think, almost $60 million in cap space. So, I mean, I think that they're going to add a big name offensive lineman, maybe Ryan Jensen, and then you can move Kendrick Green over to guard. You could get J.C. Jackson, but I think the smarter move would be either bring Joe Hayden back or Phil Witherspoon, or maybe both if you can swing it. And then, I think the thing that nobody's really talking about that much is they do need. I think the top priorities in free agency are defensive line and strong safety. I mean, it's pretty clear that Terrell Edmunds probably isn't coming back. The strong safety free agent pool is not that deep, but there's a couple names near the front that are pretty good that you can get. I think Quandre Diggs is one of them. And then defensive tackle, there's actually a lot of good defensive tackles you can get. I think Larry Ogunjobi is the best one for his money and his age and everything. He did suffer an injury near the end of last year with the Bengals, so you have to make sure he's healthy. And Quandre Diggs, he had that injury with Seattle. But I think in general, if you're a Steeler fan, there's no reason to be negative about your future. I mean, they have cap space. I mean, they still have. I mean, you look at up and down the roster. I mean, They've got young, promising guys on the offensive line. They've got a very young, promising tight end, as long as he can stay healthy. Really good young running back, Pro Bowler at receiver. Cam Hayward is getting a little longer in the tooth, but still a very good player. TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick. Has still got a lot of good. Chris Boswell. Still a lot of good pieces on that team. And if you have a quarterback that can get the job done, they should be competitive.
Not only that, too, you know what, I will say, too, if they strike out free agency and they decide to pump the brakes in the draft a little bit and probably go like someone's second or third round, personally, between you and I'm probably one of the minority thinking that I would be okay waiting a year for a quarterback. I'm not sure if I want to rush thing just yet. You look at the quarterback prospects coming out of, this year's draft. Not a lot of them have like real good, like high grades that would wow your socks off as far as like Pro Bowl talent. A lot of these guys right now, when we're looking at them, the one who had the highest grade so far, was Matt Corral, 6.4. And that's usually like, according to NFL Combine, good start within 2 years. But let me ask you this. Possibly with the Steelers trying to trade for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, don't you kind of find it interesting? It's kind of like almost possibly around the timing with Kevin Colbert more than likely getting ready to step aside. But he did acknowledge, too, that he still wants to be somewhat like of a consultant to the team. Not totally like a retirement. But if they do trade for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, get someone, do you think it's possible because of the transition they're going through with their GM situation? Any ties to that or any quarterback?
At the end of the day, I think Colbert definitely he would love to have another under his cap, right? That he's the GM that drafted Ben Roethlisberger, and he could be the GM that brings in the next heir apparent. There's certainly something to be said about that, right? We're all human. We all want to leave legacies when we leave.
Just like Jim Rutherford with formerly of the Penguins, I guess you could say too, huh?
Sure, yeah. So I think that there could certainly be something to that he wants to be a part of what could be another historic draft or off season. But I think though, speaking of the rookie quarterbacks, I would say this though. And let me ask. I actually was just talking to my friend about this. If I could, I'm gonna put you in a position here. So you can have two options. You could have Aaron Rodgers for 2 years. You're gonna have to give up some assets that might hurt you after. It could be another Tampa Bay thing. With Tom Brady, pretty much. Like I'll give you that. You get 2 years with Rodgers, you'll win 1 Super Bowl, and then that'll be it. And then the team will probably look a lot different. Or you can have Kenny Pickett. He'll be your starting quarterback for at least the next 12 years. You might not win a Super Bowl, but you're going to be competitive for that entire duration. He's going to be a Pro Bowl level quarterback for that duration. Which one would you rather have? The guarantee for 2 years, 1 Super Bowl, or 12 years of consistent success, and you might win it, you might not.
I'd rather go like the latter in this one, the second option, which would be youngster. I'd rather go for a young quarterback, either like a Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, or like a Sam Howell, to be honest, Jay. Because at the end of the day, too, where I have my concerns is the play calling. Now, Matt Canada, of course, along with Tomlin, they're going to let Aaron Rodgers do his thing as far as the offense, kind of like how they did with Ben Roethlisberger when they tried incorporating his plays under Matt Canada's offense. He is still a concern right there. You still got issues at your offensive line. And rolling a dice like that and the guy going into his 40s, because listen, Aaron Rodgers at the end of the day, I'm getting tired of making excuses for the guy who says that, well, he's played on some Packers teams who had less talent, turn a winning team. I'm almost convinced at this point, that's as far as he's going to go, is maybe to the conference championship game. It's not promised he's going to take this team to another Super Bowl. I'm not so sure about that. I think I'd rather lock up the future, because if it's only going to be for like a couple of years, guess what, a Super Bowl, I think it's better in their best interest to go someone established right now.
That being said, Brady went 10 years without winning champion. And people were saying that too, similarly. Yes, Rodgers could have played better against San Francisco, but his special teams didn't help him, right? and he was facing a very, very good San Francisco defense and elements that weren't very good, and A.J. Dillon got hurt. So, and then against the Buccaneers, I mean, there was that whole third down, fourth down kind of fiasco where he didn't run on third downs. He thought they'd go for it on fourth, then they didn't. Then they lost to Tampa Bay, and then in 19, they lost to a Niners team that was just better than them. So, yes, your points are valid that he's come up a little short in these playoff games, but, you know, it's a team thing at the end of the day, and the Packers came up short, him included, right? So, so I asked you that because I also would take the second option, which is I'd rather have the young quarterback, and I'll take my chances of being relevant for the next dozen years. My thinking is this: if they really, there's two things I think people should think about. First is there is a thought that Tomlin does not. He wants a veteran. He signed up. He's got, I think, 3 more years left under contract. There's no promises that he's going to want to keep coaching after that. I think not. I don't even think he knows what he wants to do yet. The only thing I think he knows is that he's going to coach for 3 more years, God willing. So I think for him, you know, I think he would rather have a veteran quarterback. He's never not had a veteran quarterback. He had Ben coming off a Super Bowl win. So he's never really had a youngster. And now he did have, you know, Duck and Mason for that 1 year, but that was kind of just a plug in and let's just survive a year. But he does have experience there, right? So, but I do think if he had a chance to pick, he would rather have the sure thing than a risk. That being said, if they think that Pickett is really going to be good, then they needed to try to make that happen. Obviously, if he gets drafted in the top 5 or 6 or 7. And I think based on what I'm reading, Charles, what I think is going to happen is I think if Pickett's still available to be after the top 10, they might kick the tires and see about a potential trade. But I think largely they're going to sit back and they're going to take whatever is best available at 20. And I think that was the situation with Ben. I think their mentality back then was we're not going to trade up from 11. But if Ben Roethlisberger is at 11, there's no way we're not taking him. And I think that that's a similar thing with Pickett. You could say, well, that doesn't show much faith in him, or that doesn't show much, you know. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's all a risk, right? And nobody has a crystal ball. You can't see into the future. You know, Pickett, I think to me is the best quarterback in this draft. And I think that he could, depending on where he goes, he could have a really, really good career. And if he's there for the Steelers at 20, I don't see them not. If they don't take him, to me, it's clear that they just don't really think he's that good. By that point, though, and this is the other issue, Charles, is that it'd be interesting to see what happened if you had the draft and free agency, right? It's interesting that you have free agency first and then the draft. So you kind of have to go in with a game plan. Okay, here's how we're going to attack free agency, and then we'll attack the draft this way. And I think, with the Steelers, I think that for them, they're going to address both, same positions in both. I think that they are going to get, they're going to draft a lineman, but I think they're also going to sign one. I think they're going to do that with cornerback. And so I think that you're going to see similar patterns. Receiver, I don't see them getting anybody. I think they'll get like a veteran on the market, like remember when they got Jericho Kashi or something like that. They'll probably try to sign a complimentary receiver. There's a lot of good ones. But they're for sure going to draft a receiver because they're going to have, the thing that's confusing to me is if Mason's coming back, why wouldn't you re-sign James Washington? But to me, it seems like they're both just ready for a divorce. So it just seems like the water's been too muddied. So I think both parties would rather just move on from each other, which is a shame because I think James and Mason, that would be a real thing. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out here. So, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting, Charles. And the one thing that we know is it's going to be Mason, Dwayne versus one other guy. And the question is, who's the other guy going to be?
That's the thing where you kind of mentioned what I like you brought up, though, too. I mean, the cap space they got for this year. I mean, you can also add an additional about $27 million for the market value of the Athletic, too, to make it about $90 million. Try to make some restructure. So, even if they do select Pickett with the 20th pick in the draft, I would be okay with that because now I think what you want to be careful of right now, you got a guy like Ben Roethlisberger who's clearly at the end of his run, probably last like beginning of the 2019 season. Even though he had that decent start to 2020, you saw how it ended. He had the most game-winning drives and fourth quarter comebacks this past year, despite how slow motion that offense did. But I feel like right now, this season, the last thing I think Steelers want to do is life beyond Ben Roethlisberger, especially, is be viewed in the public eye. You got all this money you haven't had in a long time with salary cap wise, especially gambling with TJ Watt guaranteeing his deal, which is starting this year, his guaranteed money. I think the last thing you want to do is continue to play this cheaper the keeper role where you're getting quarterbacks like going to like an Ace Hardware store, or like a Jameis Winston, Dwayne Haskins, former first round picks that are no longer used in organizations. I think they got no excuse to be a little bit of aggressive this free agency. And if you want, like Joe Starkey even challenged them many a times, they're truly in it to win it. What are we doing here?
I agree. I also think, though, this might not, I mean, yes, they have the money to do it, but the other thing is, too, you don't want to spend money for the sake of it. And I think really, I mean, J.C. Jackson's a good cornerback, but there's a reason why New England's not keeping him, right? So I think, they're really, I mean, Kyle Van Noy's available. I mean, the Steelers could sign him. He was released today. That would be I think would be a good acquisition. But, I just think that I don't know. I see what you're saying or what Joe's saying, but I think for me, they don't need to spend money to have a successful offseason. Like, very open to me would be, to me, I would be aggressive addressing what your weaknesses are. So if that means spending money on your defensive line, then do it. If that means, even when you look at not bringing back Terrell Edmonds, I wrote this today. They clearly think they can get somebody better than Edmonds, who was pretty good. So, but now you have to do it. So to me, it's it's putting your money where your mouth is. So, okay, well, you're going to let Edmonds go, then let me see who you're getting.
Well,
you guys were, you were last in the league in rushing last year. Well, show me who you're going to get to fix that. Yeah, they have to emphatically fix, the offensive line, defensive line, and you have to get another safety to replace Edmonds. We'll see how they handle those things, and obviously the quarterback position. So yeah, it is a very pivotal offseason for them, and I think they've learned from years past that sometimes sitting idle isn't the best way to do things. Shazier got hurt after 17. That whole offseason, they should have drafted Darius Leonard in the second round or the first round rather, not Edmonds. But for whatever reason, they thought Edmonds was worth that pick. They didn't draft a single linebacker that draft. Their answer was John Bostic, who, is a run stuffer, but they needed to get somebody that could be somewhat anything close to what Shazier brought. And that was a huge mistake. And then obviously the whole Le'Veon contract fiasco. So I think they learned from that. And I think they learned that in the future, you got to be proactive. When you see a hole, you can't wait a year. You got to fix the hole.
Yeah, no, I kind of see what you're saying. So real quickly, before I let you out here, I just want to bring up a couple things real quickly. First 3 picks in the top 100 right now. Look at over the cap right now. Of course, the draft board could still change shortly once we file the compensatory picks coming up. They're supposed to get a 4th round for Bud Dupree, who was signed to the Titans last year in free agency. But for right now, first 3 picks, if you were to go in this order, Brian, what would you say the scenario you would see play out? Quarterback, tackle, interior edge, or would you go tackle, wide receiver, and tackle? Wide receiver, tackle, and interior lineman. What positions would you see be for the first 3 if you were to do your mock draft right now?
Oh, that's good. Well, it depends. You also might have to throw a quarterback into there. Honestly, right? Especially with Hayden probably going. Hayden's going to test the market. He tweeted today 1 more week or something. So it seems like Hayden's going to test the market, which is not a good sign. So, I think they need to. I don't know. To me, I would for sure draft a cornerback as soon as you can. I mean, usually corners, yeah, Malcolm Butler was an undrafted guy, but usually corners are guys that, you got to invest in, right? So, yeah, Mike Hilton was also a guy that was undrafted, so maybe not. But I think you got to address that, the corner. There are a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft, so I could see them getting one early. I'll be honest, though. I mean, yeah, there's some good offensive linemen, but I wouldn't reach. So if you had to twist my arm, I would probably go offensive line, defensive line, and then corner. I mean, they're so bad at drafting corners, though. I mean, part of me thinks they might go early if there's a guy they really like. I don't really know how good the corners are in this draft. I don't think they're necessarily great. I know there's a lot of good linemen in this draft, and I know there's a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft. So I think the Steelers are gonna hit both of those. So now that I've thought more about it, I think they'll go O-line, D-line, and then either corner or receiver. And Colbert's so good at getting receivers. And at the end of the day, they still have Claypool and they still have Deontay. So they still have two good starting points. So it's not like you need a guy to come in and just kill it right away. I mean, the Steelers made an AFC Championship game with Kobe Hamilton as their number 2. So and Eli Rogers, right? So they can make it with Deontay, Claypool, and then another complimentary guy. So that's what I would pick: O-line, D-line, and then either corner or receiver.
That'd be interesting right there. And I would absolutely have no problem. Like I said, this year's free agency, I'm not so sure if I want to rush quarterback. I mean, if you get it in free agency or the draft, I mean, we'll wait and see. I mean, great. I mean, you're not waiting too long, but like I said, there is a lot more positions of need. But speaking of Pitt right now, as you know, we're 3 weeks removed away from the Super Bowl being concluded. Aaron Donald finally getting his first ever Super Bowl ring. Looks like he's going to come back with the Rams, run it back. I mean, and I just did and I know I mentioned this, and I did some research on this. It's my all-time defensive tackles of all time. I did 5, and here's what I compiled. I got Aaron Donald, followed by Mean Joe Green, Merlin Olsen, Alan Page, J.J. Watt. What do you think of that ranking? Who would you swap out? Who would you put in there real quickly?
Bob Lilly has to be in there.
Yeah.
And I think J.J. was he really defensive tackle, or is he defensive? I always thought he was defensive tackle. Did he tackle?
No, he was more like defensive tackle while I looked at his career a little bit more.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I still think of Watt more as an outside guy, but I would make it, I think I would consider Watt on the outside, so I would keep him there. I'm going to go, I mean, obviously I'm going to say Joe Green's number 1, and I still think Joe Green, I would probably put Donald ahead of Green. I mean, that's tough to do, but I probably would have to. I probably would put Donald ahead of Green. Donald, probably Green, Page, Lilly, and Olsen. That's probably what I would do. Because I think you have to have Lilly in there. And I think, again, I'm still finding this, very interesting, Charles. It's like every day, even today, I was doing an article on the New York Sack Exchange. Mark Gastineau had over 100 sacks in about 10 years. I mean, I think it's really cool that Pro Football Reference did that. Now you can kind of see. I was surprised that Joe Green's sack numbers weren't bigger, but he was, double teamed a bunch and didn't have a lot of help around him. And also, too, a lot of times he took on double teams to help, LC and other guys get to the quarterback. So Joe was a really selfless player. I still, though, I don't know, a part of me would still put Joe Green number 1 just because he was just so dominant.
No, actually, I take that back. Watt was more of a defensive end, so my slope up there. But no, I was going to say, if you're talking about Bob Lilly, I'd probably maybe argue Randy White over Bob Lilly, technically. I mean, if I had to swap out. Because
Lilly was just so good. He was more like a Joe Green, where he was, Randy White was phenomenal, but Randy White, I think, he kind of suffers from, at least in my view, because he had more help around him. So I think, he had Harvey Martin around him and Utah Jones. I mean, the funny thing is, if the steel curtain wasn't around back then, Dallas Doomsday would have won more championships for sure. They would have at least gotten one more in 78, but Yeah, it's hard to pick against Green just because of how dominant he was and how important he was in winning championships. And I think that's where, again, I know it's a team sport, but like there's something to be said about the best player on your team is defensive tackle, and you won. I mean, especially the first two they won, and especially the first Super Bowl they won. I mean, he was their most important player, and then Franco, and then Bradshaw. So I mean, his impact was exceptional, and it's a shame that he had his injury in '75, which he was not the same player again after that. But here's what I'll say: I think for the career, it's Aaron Donald. I think he's the best career of any defensive tackle. But if you had to give me one defensive tackle for a 5-year stretch, I think Joe Green, 69 to 74, nobody's been better than him.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. I would just always say the only thing why I put Donald above him is because no one's ever had to start where he's made a Pro Bowl at least 7 years in a row. This is his whole career. This is no breaks in between. I mean, and then you also look at the All Pros right now too. I mean, basically, 7 in a row from 2015 to 2021, 8 Pro Bowls every year since he's been in the league. I mean, Bob Lilly is like second behind that streak with 6.
And I think when you're talking about players that defensive linemen that can dominate a game, can take over a game, I think it's Green and it's Donald.
Well,
I think those are the two that stand out over anybody. Like we saw Donald in the Super Bowl, we saw him against the 49ers. You saw him. There's so many times where you see him just win a game by himself, and it's unbelievable.
But isn't there something to be said too for Aaron Donald versus like guys like Joe Green? By no means I'm slaying Green at all. I love the guy all the time, especially with the Steelers and the NFL. But don't you find it almost equally or just as impressed for this fact right here too? Aaron Donald, you're playing in a league where defensive players get prone to a lot more penalties, where they got to be careful in an offensive-driven league where you get flagged a lot for personal fouls, pass interferences, roughing the quarterbacks. All those hurdles he's got to overcome and still be at the top of his game. What would you say of that?
Yeah, but at the same time, too, Joe Green, I mean, back then the Raiders were playing with casts, and they were clubbing. I mean, you know what I mean? So it was, and also, too, back then, I mean, players throw so much more now where you can almost get off the snap and you can get right into a pass rush. Where Joe Green, and back then, I mean, as great as Donald is, I mean, I think what Joe Green and the Steelers defensive line did in the '74 AFC Championship game is unmatched by any defense ever. I mean, 29 yards rushing. The Raiders offense had 3 Hall of Fame linemen. With Cliff Branch cut going in the summer, they had 7 Hall of Fame players, and they held the 13 points and 29 rushing yards. I think so. Yes, to your point, defensive players now are more handicapped than they were back then. But back then, they had to. They were facing much more balanced offenses and much tougher offenses in a much tougher game. I mean, football was a much more physical game back then, and you had to be able to hold your own against that. So,
yeah, definitely. And then the resources added to get better quicker too. I mean, you have a quarterback like Joe Theismann who breaks his leg, pretty much game over in an instant for his career. But you have guys like Alex Smith, Dak Prescott, and Joe Burrow break their leg. The technology they have around them to recuperate a little bit more quicker and still give themselves a little bit of a longer shot. Not so much Alex Smith since it's over, but the technology and the resources I would also add too. I mean, if you talk about like toughness in the league, that's one thing a lot of those guys did not have.
Right. Well, hey, Charles, I'll let you continue with your show. Just thought I'd call in and chat a little bit. It had been a while, so thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Definitely greatly appreciate it. Feel free to call in at any time. I'll definitely find stuff. I've been meaning to catch up with you. Sorry about that, but glad to have you on a little bit. And always my favorite time of year have NFL free agency start a new league year around St. Patty's Day. It's a fun time for this league, man.
Always something for sure. Me too. It's funny because I actually really can't stand the combine at all. Especially because we didn't have it last year, and I think I don't think we missed anything. But I'm with you. I really love covering free agency, so this will be week. So thanks again, Charles, and we'll talk again soon, buddy.
Likewise, Brian. Thank you very much.
Yep, see ya.
Bye-bye. And once again, that was a very legendary Brian DiArlo of CBS Sports right there. You can follow him on Twitter and on Instagram at Brian DiArlo right there. Has a lot of great content. Feel free to check out his articles right there going into. I will say this too right now. Major League Baseball, I hope you guys are taking notes of what the NFL is doing right now, especially the NHL, because they're in a bad spot right now. Where they're striking right now, and from what appears, canceling the first couple series of opening day and maybe coming back around June 1st. Need to figure out a way like the NHL. But anyway, thanks, Brian, for hopping on. Appreciate you, bud. Let's go ahead and get right back into what I was saying real quickly here. Quarterbacks, I think it's going to be more likely in the draft the Steelers do go around. I'm not so sure about free agency. Mitch Trubisky, it does not make any sense. I mean, yeah, the price figure be a little cheaper, probably like around $11 million. I'm not sure if the Steelers really want to go that route. I mean, because what does that say about a guy like Mason Rudolph right there? If you extend him, I mean, unless it's to put more quarterback competition and pressure on Mason Rudolph to like develop him into a star. That's the only thing I will say. But anything, let's look at it real quick. Kenny Pickett, he had the second highest grade of his group, 6.39, eventual plus star behind Matt Carl of Ole Miss, 6.40, good star within 2 years. Now, Corral, he's compiled up 8,281 yards, which is fourth best behind Kenny Pickett, a Pitt, and Sam Howell, North Carolina with 10,283 yards. Desmond Ritter of Ole Mississippi, he has 10,239 yards. The thing about Corral right now, he competes hard, quick processor, along with impressive release quickness, and rips a tight spiral. The verdict on him, he doesn't have the physical advantages that Penny Pickett or Malik Willis have, but he's a pure quarterback than either of them. Now, when you look at a guy like Matt Corral in this year's draft, according to Walter Football, Matt Corral, he is projected to be at least top 100 pick, not necessarily a first round, but he's selected anywhere between the first 3 rounds of this year's draft. Something to think about, along with guys with Pickett, Willis. Pickett and Willis sound like to be sure first round picks right now, according to Walter Football. Here's another quarterback too to look at too. Sam Howell. Now, doesn't have an impressive grade as the other guys, but he's 6.16 is his combine grade. As we look at him right here, I mean, basically going into this one right now, when we look at it, Sam Howell, he has a 6.16 grade. He threw for 10,283 yards, which, like I said, is the second best right here. 92 touchdowns to 23 interception, touchdown to interception ratio, which I think would be freakish right there. Which is, I mean, the best amongst his quarterback prospects. I mean, look at Kenny Pickett. I mean, who has final year of Pitt. I mean, you look at it right here too. I mean, he went from 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in his, his fourth season at Pitt, which was during the pandemic year, and then blew that up to 42 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. A lot of people have been making fun of the guy with the small hands. I can really give two you-know-whats about the hand size. Bottom line is, can you make decisions? Can you find open receivers? Can you get creative? Can you carry a team? All about the winning product, I think, at the end of the day right now. So that's all I got to say on this one. But I will say in this year's draft, I'm probably looking at right now to the way things are going to play out. I'll probably say that the Steelers get a tackle, quarterback, and an interior lineman at this one. maybe an outside linebacker, who knows? But anyway, let's keep it moving along. I did mention I was going to go over tackles with this one. As Kevin Cole, remember, he did mention wide receivers, tackles, quarterbacks, and defense ends here the deepest in this year's draft. Each with 6 projected to go in the first round and 10 in the top 100. Evan Neal, for example, he is a top-ranked tackle, stands at 6'7", 360 pounds. He is more dominant player at right tackle or guard. He moved to left tackle in 2021, but average yards on the ground took a dip from 183.6 to 150 for his team. Played well on the blind side overall, and he had problems with blocking for the Florida Gators, but speed rushers upfield that he was assigned to block was protected by Alabama with a lot of quick passing. Now, Evan Neal for this year, going into this, man, he is 6'7", 360 pounds in this year. He is like the second biggest one on the out of the top 10 tackles right now. He has a combine grade of 6.76. He is a year one starter right here. I would not mind if the Steelers find a way to get him. I'm not sure if he's going to be available when it gets that late in the first round, but man, and the good thing about Evan Neal right here, he's a multi-talented position where he can play tackle and guard. So, I mean, you talk about the run blocking, think about what he could do for his value as far as protecting who will be understar, where it's Mason Rudolph. I mean, or it's Jameis Winston or Trubisky. You need to protect these quarterbacks. Mobile quarterbacks are nice, but when you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, who's injured his ankle as of late, has not been like nearly the same guy the last 2 seasons. I mean, that's something to think about. A reminder, when quarterbacks decide to be a runner and take those hits, you got issues right there. I'll also look at, too, in this year's draft, Akeem Ekwonu, who hails right now. Evan Neal, he was out of Alabama. Ekwonu, he comes out of North Carolina State, 6'4", 320 pounds. He has a 6.52 combine grade, boom or bust potential right now. But anyway, look at it right here, what he's been able to do in his 3 seasons while at North Carolina State right here. I mean, what he's been able to do here. I mean, he helped, rushing yards in this pretty well respectable. 151.4 in this first year for his team, 123.3 his second year, and 126.6. I mean, his teams for the most part have averaged over at least 4 yards or more on the ground. So about 4 yards per average right there per attempt. He ran a nice 4-yard dash for a guy his size, 4.93 seconds. And he had a vertical jump of 2,908 broad jump, ran a 3-cone drill of 7.82 seconds, and a 20-yard shuttle in 4.73 seconds right there. 4.93 out of the top 10. It's like in the top 3 right there, and performance-wise. Thing about here, Ekwonu, he has experience in both guard and tackle, where he projects as being able to play at left tackle. He has a shot to be a top 10 pick, but may not be available, but someone to think about right here. Another guy I look at for tackle this year is Charles Cross, 6'5", 290 pounds, out of Mississippi State. Looks like a future starting left tackle, impressed many evaluators a year ago. Excellent feet, athleticism, and quickness to play on the edge for the next level sources. Cross needs to get stronger and bigger for taking on pro linemen, but that is not abnormal. Speaking of Charles Cross, his combine grade for this year, going into it, he had a 6.42 combine grade. Good start within 2 years. That is pretty good right there. And also, too, I would say Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, 6'7", 322 pounds, considered to be a riser during evaluations. He has good speed and athleticism to go with his massive size. Trevor Penning, in this year's combine, he has scored a 6.4, pretty much in the same boat as the previous candidate with Charles Cross. I mean, basically a good starter within 2 years. That'd be another guy to look at as the Steelers are wanting to go with offensive tackle with their first pick at number 20. And Tyler Smith out of Tulsa, 6'5", 332 pounds. Has scouts super high on him and feel he has the potential to be a high riser. One quote is saying, if Tyler Smith blows up his combine workouts, he could go top 10. And speaking of Tyler Smith right there, who they were just talking about right there for this year, he's be a top 10 pick, but 6.25 grade, 5.02 in the 4-yard dash. I mean, for right now, I'm not so sure about him for right now. But, I mean, he's an eventual average starter, so I'm not sure about top 10. But that's all I'm going to leave it with for tonight. For our tackles, I just want to once again thank Brian Diarno. And I just want to leave it for you guys real quickly, too. What did you guys think as far as my list right now? And also, fair or foul? Do you see Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers? I'm going to say foul for right now. I'm not sure it seems that realistic. There's got to be some truth right now, him possibly coming to the Steelers. Never say never, of course. I don't think it's going to happen, but only time will tell. And also, too, greatest defensive tackles of all time. Once again, since the Super Bowl is wrapped up, my list right now for top 5, I got Aaron Donald, Mean Joe Green, Merlin Olsen, Alan Page, and I would also add Randy White. So me and Brian differs right there. He liked Bob Lilly. I go with Randy White. I mean, Randy White made 5 straight All-Pros. Bob Lilly made 6 straight from 64 to 69. But Aaron Donald, Mean Joe Green, no question. And you play the era where the league was a lot more tougher, a lot more stuff they had to be aware of as far as the physicality. But still, I mean, for something to be said about a guy, Aaron Donald, playing today's offensive rules, where as a defensive player, it's very tough to go through. I mean, when you think about it too. I mean, Aaron Donald, as far as defensive tackles, he has the 4th most sacks. I mean, when you truly look at it, I mean, technically, second, I guess you could say, behind John Randall. He has 98 career sacks. I mean, if you were to count the official sacks since 1982, that would be John Randall, who has 137 and a half, played for the Vikings and Seahawks for 14 years right there. Aaron Donald, I mean, it's just no one like him right there. I mean, as far as in that regard, but man, it's just something to be impressive right there. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the Mass Steel Podcast. Once again, we went over the quarterbacks for this year's draft, along with offensive tackles. I want to thank Brian Diarno again for hopping on. Thanks for calling in, bud. Always great staying in touch with you. You can definitely follow me on Twitter at MassSteelCGR and on Instagram at MassSteelNation. As always, leave you guys. Don't be trolling. Be rolling. Here we go, sirs. Here we go. I gone.